You won't believe what's happening at UCLA. Armed U.S. troops are engaging in terrifying and violent clashes with young students. Riot shields, flashbangs, and heavy arms have become the new norm, with dozens of people hurt. Hundreds of protesters already brutally arrested, locked up, and facing severe consequences. The government has had enough, and violence is their tactic. This is just the beginning of stopping this pro-Palestinian protest. With government officials getting extremely tired of know-it-all students creating utter chaos, they've decided to round them all up and break down their camps at any means, hoping to put an end to the madness. But this hasn't been the case. More protesters than ever resume demonstrations, begging questions about what means the authorities must use to end this insanity. And most importantly, why isn't our President Joe Biden confronting the issue directly? Stick around as we delve into the severe situation at UCLA. UCLA Crackdown.
Violence breaks out on UCLA's campus. Police and pro-Palestinian protesters now clashing.
At UCLA, the situation escalated significantly as police in riot gear forcefully dismantled a pro-Palestinian encampment known as Tent City. The early morning operation saw officers using flashbangs and physical force to breach barricades set up by the protesters. This action led to clashes with students who resisted the police advance by trying to hold their ground. The violent interaction resulted in the destruction of Tent City, with police pushing over plywood barriers and dismantling the physical structures of the encampment. This aggressive police response has sparked criticism and raised questions about the tactics used to handle campus protests. But stirring further tension are the brutal fist-to-fist fights between students, angry about holy protesters taking over their campus, resulting in barbarous battles with everything from blades to poles. What makes the situation worse is the fact that this isn't a singular episode unfolding at UCLA. It is happening all across the U.S., and some places it's even worse. Stick around as we dive deeper into the disturbing nationwide protests. UT Austin protest.
This was supposed to be a peaceful demonstration.
Tensions are escalating at the University of Texas at Austin, and here's the current situation. What was supposed to be a peaceful demonstration on campus quickly descended into chaos. The initial plan for a quiet protest fell apart when police in full riot gear, equipped with batons, chemical agents, pepper bullets, and heavy weapons, arrived on the scene.
Pushing for what? Pushing for what?
For the second day in a row, students and faculty at UT Austin called for an end to the violence.
The deployment of such armament has heightened tensions significantly. UT students who had gathered to peacefully express their opinions found themselves confronted by a police force that seemed ready for a conflict rather than a peaceful gathering.
And our breaking news coverage continues. We've now learned more than 20 people were arrested after protests erupted at the University of Texas at Austin today. The state responded with a heavy law enforcement presence. In the statement, Governor Abbott said the protesters, quote, belong in jail.
As events unfolded, the campus became a flashpoint between law enforcement and young protesters, with numerous forceful arrests and brutal clashes taking place. This intense confrontation prompts serious questions about the decision-making and priorities at the leadership level. This situation is bad, but far from the worst. Keep watching as we dive deeper into the madness. USC Protest.
Pro-Palestinian protesters clash. LA police officers in riot gear move in, and there are a number of confrontations as the police force encircles the center of campus. That's when dozens of arrests begin as protesters who refuse to leave are taken away one by one.
The situation at the University of Southern California has escalated significantly. Here's the current scenario. Students and local community members are engaged in intense confrontations with police and campus security over a demonstration. At the core of the conflict, a pro-Palestinian group established tents in Alumni Park, protesting what they describe as policies of repression and censorship. However, the issues extend beyond the encampment. Campus safety, usually a priority, is now in the limelight as tensions have risen, prompting the deployment of riot-equipped police who made dozens of harsh arrests among those who resisted dispersal. This response has heightened concerns and unease among students and spectators alike. Additionally, there is growing scrutiny over the financial aspects. Students are questioning the allocation of their university fees, particularly regarding the substantial police presence on campus. But what has the government done to end the chaos? Have they even lifted a finger? Government response.
I condemn the anti-Semitic protests. That's why I've set up a program to deal with that. I also condemn those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians and how they're being.
The situation on U.S. college campuses is getting worse, and President Joe Biden seems to be doing little about it, similar to his inactive approach to the border crisis. Police armed with riot gear and heavy weapons are confronting students at places like USC and UT Austin, turning these campuses into militarized zones. Despite this, we're hearing nothing from the White House, which continues to ignore other domestic issues as well. These events are too familiar. Rising tensions, calls for leadership, and insufficient action from those in power. Students are questioning why their tuition is paying for police who look more like soldiers than campus security. Instead of talking and calming things down, the response has been tear gas and tasers, reflecting the same poor management and waste of resources we've seen at the border.
Pro-Palestinian protesters gathered outside the Washington Hilton as guests arrive for tonight's White House Correspondents' Dinner.
As protests have reached the White House and might soon target Biden directly, people are increasingly questioning his involvement. Will the president listen to the young voices of America, or will he keep ignoring the growing problems? These campus issues require urgent attention, which Biden has yet to provide. Stirring further debate is the fact that the two protests we've covered so far are not alone. Dozens more are happening right now. Stick around as we delve deeper into the controversy. Emory University.
It was something never seen on the campus of Emory University Thursday as pro-Palestinian protesters and those against the Atlanta training facility went head-to-head with law enforcement.
Tensions are rising at Emory University in Atlanta, where a peaceful protest quickly escalated after law enforcement stepped in. Initially, demonstrators set up tents and used bullhorns to express their concerns. However, the scene turned tense as Emory University police, Atlanta police, and the Georgia State Patrol arrived, heavily equipped with riot gear. They used tasers and chemical agents to break up the crowd, resulting in several arrests. About a dozen people were detained, increasing the already high tensions. The cost of such a heavy police response is also causing concern. Observers and protesters are questioning why university and public funds are being spent on forceful law enforcement rather than on promoting dialogue or addressing the protesters' issues more peacefully.
It was a day on campus like no other.
This crackdown disrupted campus life and ignited a wider discussion about civil liberties and student activism. With the university stating that the arrested individuals were not part of the community, it raises questions about who is allowed to protest and the manner in which these protests are managed. As more protests are expected later in the day, uncertainty hangs over the campus. This incident at Emory University underscores the complex challenges of handling public demonstrations on college campuses, especially when they lead to significant clashes between students and police. NYU protest. Tensions are high at New York University as a peaceful protest quickly turned chaotic. What started as a tranquil encampment escalated when a considerable police force, including officers in riot gear, arrived and blocked access to the area.
NYPD moving in more than 4 hours after the deadline, arresting demonstrators for trespassing on campus.
The demonstration's peaceful intentions were overshadowed by the heavy police presence preparing for potential confrontations.
This is the New York City Police Department. You have been warned by New York University to leave the area.
The situation intensified when NYPD officers approached the plaza near the School of Business, dismantling tents and making arrests.
Cops pushing their way through the crowd, using zip ties to make arrests.
With over 100 people arrested, the community is now questioning whether such a forceful response was necessary for a student-led protest.
A massive line of those in custody waiting to load buses. NYU officials saying they witnessed disorderly, disruptive, and antagonizing behavior that has interfered with the safety and security of our community.
Financial concerns are also prominent, with students and onlookers troubled by the substantial resources devoted to the police operation. Many argue that these funds could have been better used within the university or the local community.
Some demonstrators quickly moving off campus, avoiding arrest.
The police's forceful actions have not only escalated tensions, but also shifted focus from the protest's original message, sparking a wider debate on campus about the balance between security and freedom of expression. As NYU grapples with these issues, the university community faces ongoing questions about the role of police in managing protests and what this means for student safety and university priorities. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into even worse confrontations. OHare protest.
Rob, Chicago police said they arrested more than 50 people today between protests downtown and near OHare this morning.
Tensions are high near OHare Airport in Chicago, where a peaceful demonstration took a volatile turn this morning. Originally planned as a simple march, the protest was met by a substantial police force, including officers in riot gear prepared to step in.
Passionate calls for freedom devolved into chaos. Police clashed with protesters. Punches were thrown as the crowd shoved and wrestled in the streets.
The police established blockades, blocking the demonstrators' route and sparking further unrest. The use of police batons, chemical agents, and pepper bullets intensified the already charged atmosphere. As clashes between the police and protesters led to physical altercations and numerous arrests, community frustration deepened. By day's end, over 50 people were detained, underscoring the severity of the situation.
Many travelers today had to hike it to OHare because a protest blocked the highway. And man, it caused a massive traffic delay.
There's also growing concern over financial issues, as both residents and protesters question the use of their tax dollars for such a forceful police response. This heavy-handed approach to a peaceful protest has many questioning the priorities and decision-making of city leaders. The area, typically busy with commuters and travelers, was paralyzed. Traffic disruptions around the airport impacted daily routines and highlighted wider issues regarding public safety and the right to protest. This incident at OHare reflects the escalating tensions between public demonstrators and law enforcement in urban areas. As the situation evolves, the city faces crucial questions about freedom, safety, and the true cost of maintaining security. Humboldt protest. Tensions are soaring at Humboldt University due to a protest that quickly became tense when met with a substantial police response. Students and faculty who had gathered to voice their concerns were confronted by officers in riot gear, equipped with shields and batons, signaling a readiness for serious confrontation. The situation grew more intense as the police implemented strict controls around key campus locations, blocking movements of protesters and causing standoffs. There were reports of pepper spray and tasers being used, escalating the chaos and discomfort among the protesters. Concerns about financial priorities are also rising within the Humboldt community. Many are questioning why university and public funds are being spent on such a heavy police response instead of being used to meet student needs and ensure safety in less confrontational ways. This forceful response to a university protest has disrupted academic activities and daily campus life, sparking a broader discussion about the balance between security and freedom of expression and the role of policing in educational environments. With more arrests occurring, the community is left with ongoing frustrations and questions about the necessity of such forceful measures. What implications will this have for future protests and police presence at Humboldt? Columbia protest.
A stunning scene at Columbia University in New York today. Police in riot gear moving in to clear an encampment of students protesting the war in Gaza. Dozens arrested.
Tensions are escalating at Columbia University, where the situation intensified as police in riot gear moved to break up a protest encampment, leading to confrontations with students. The removal of what protesters called Tent City was met with significant resistance, resulting in 113 students being arrested and zip-tied by law enforcement. The presence of police with shields and batons on this prestigious campus has triggered a broad debate about the appropriateness of such force within an academic environment.
Confrontation at Columbia today. Police removing protesters from campus. citing extraordinary circumstances.
The strong police response has sparked concerns over how resources are being used and whether safety or the right to peaceful protest is being prioritized. This crackdown has disrupted everyday campus life and sparked a wider conversation on civil liberties and student activism. As students began to reassemble their encampment, the atmosphere on campus stayed tense, with continued protests reflecting deep frustration among students. The university community and outside observers are now examining the consequences of these actions, wrestling with how to balance maintaining order while respecting student activism. This incident at Columbia University underscores the ongoing struggle between security measures and the rights to academic freedom and expression. National impact. Campus unrest is evolving into a national narrative that's reshaping discussions around civil liberties, educational priorities, and financial accountability from coast to coast. Protests at prominent universities like the University of Southern California, the University of Texas at Austin, and Emory University in Atlanta have brought these issues into sharp focus, with tensions running high and visibility increasing dramatically. There is a clear financial concern that's causing dissatisfaction across campuses. Students are increasingly vocal about their tuition being used to fund police in riot gear, rather than improve educational facilities or the quality of their learning. This shift is not only transforming university campuses, but is also fueling national debates about how educational institutions manage their finances. As riot gear becomes more common than textbooks, universities may need to brace for significant changes in public perception and potentially in student enrollment patterns. The disruption to education is significant. For example, at USC, crucial academic events like Finals Week have been thrown into chaos, prompting a hurried shift to online classes. At UT Austin, what started as a peaceful demonstration turned the campus into a near-war zone, disrupting academic life and creating a climate of fear and uncertainty. These disruptions threaten the core mission of these institutions and could deter future generations of thinkers and leaders. Moreover, these campus protests are highlighting broader issues of civil liberties. The arrest of students and faculty under tense conditions at Emory raises serious concerns about free speech and the right to assemble. This is more than a localized campus issue. It's a national problem that reflects and perhaps intensifies current debates over policing and civil rights across America. The stories emerging from these universities are painting a vivid picture of a nation struggling with how to handle dissent, particularly in academic settings traditionally viewed as breeding grounds for future leaders. Each arrest and every act of force against protesters is not merely a minor news item, but a pivotal moment in the larger American narrative, testing the balance between maintaining order and upholding freedoms. As campuses continue to be sites of protest, the nation is watching closely. Will these educational institutions adapt and address the underlying causes of dissent, or will they remain centers of conflict? This ongoing conversation is crucial not just for today, but for defining the future of American democracy. Conclusion. Across the United States, from the University of Southern California to the busy terminals of SeaTac Airport, a series of escalating protests are marking a significant moment of national reflection. Each demonstration, whether on college campuses or at major transportation hubs, underscores a growing debate over authority limits, civil liberties, and financial priorities. At the core of these protests is a widespread dissatisfaction with what is perceived as excessive policing and inadequate representation, sparking vital questions about power balance and the effectiveness of government in addressing public grievances. Both students and community members are voicing opposition to the intrusive presence of heavily armed law enforcement in their educational and communal environments. Amidst this unrest, President Joe Biden has been criticized for what many see as a passive response, reminiscent of his administration's approach to other domestic challenges like border management. The on-the-ground frustration reflects a national demand for authentic leadership that tackles not just the immediate problems, but also the root causes behind the protests. As these demonstrations potentially draw closer to the president's doorstep, the nation watches and waits. Will there be a move towards substantive dialogue and reform, or will the administration remain static, perpetuating a cycle of dissatisfaction and discord? The response will profoundly influence the political landscape and shape how future generations perceive the effectiveness and compassion of their leaders. In summary, these widespread protests are not merely isolated events of public dissent, but represent a larger American crisis concerning governance, freedom, and responsibility power use. The resolution of these issues could redefine how civil engagement and governance are approached in the years ahead, prompting a critical reassessment of how democracy operates during times of conflict.